Okay, I think we're going to get started. This is track 3. The topic is Rohingya in Unicode, 3 years after standardization, by Craig, with presenters Craig Cornelius and Mohammed Noor.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm Craig. I am privileged to be here, and my collaborator and principal speaker on this is Mohammed Noor, who will give you more details about himself. Just to let you know, he is joining us from 12 time zones away in Islamabad, Pakistan. Let's say that getting a visa is more complicated than setting up an internet link these days. And just to remind you, some of you may have been here last year. Mohammed and I gave a presentation last year on this topic, and we're going to get an update on the status of Rohingya and after the Unicode transition, or after the Unicode adoption. So Mohammed, please begin.
Thank you very much. So I guess good morning to all of you there, and thank you very much for setting up this through the video conferencing. I am Mohammed Noor. I'm a Rohingya myself. I've been working in the development of Rohingya institution in many different ways. So one of the projects that I'm working on is how to bring Rohingya language and the Rohingya script into the digital world. So that's where the journey begins since 1990s, where we started to digitize the language and bring some sort of font so that people can write. And of course, up to the point where now we have been accepted in Unicode about 3 years ago. And last year also we have presented in terms of the Unicode and Rohingya people and how much of joy within the Rohingya community thrilled all over and so on. So today I will talk a few specifics of the language and standardization and the impact, and most importantly, how this language and how this Unicode is actually changing people's life. That's what my focus would be. Of course, talking about the other aspect of the Unicode as well. So thank you very much, Craig. Craig has been very generous and good from the beginning of helping us in different way to get the Rohingya language and many tools to be developed in many different ways as well. I think Craig, while Craig is there, he can explain more. So I will go into these are details. If anyone want to contact me or Craig, I think most of you knows Craig email, and this is my email, noor@mdnoor.net. So let's begin. So before I begin into the Unicode, I just want to give you a brief introduction of the Rohingya and the people and where it's located and so on the world map. So we are a tiny, small place where we call Arakan, the Rakhine state, which is in Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. On one side, we have China, Laos, and Thailand, another India and Bangladesh. This is where we are situated. And most of the Rohingya is being populated for centuries on this land. So Rohingya is the name of a people and also name of the language itself. So Rohingya has been spoken and written for centuries in the valley of Rohang. This is where the Rohang is. Rohang is also, Rohingya is derived from the word Rahim. Rahim is an Arabic word of mercy. So when Arabian saint and trader, the ship was broken down, they came down to the shore of Arakan, where the people of mercy have given them mercy to those traders and saints. So we were called out as the merciful land. That's what the name itself derived as well. So of course, since then there's a lot of king that ruled Arakan, and for many centuries up till to the point of colonizations of when the British arrived and so on. So the most important thing here is that the Rohingya and the language of the Rohingya people are these are very important today in this day, because Rohingyas are subjected to genocide, subjected to elimination, subjected to eradication, and we always call we are at the verge of the extinction. So that's what been totally been planned. So because this is not a subject of politics or so on, but it is extremely important for people to know that how Rohingya faces and what it means to be part of Unicode, what it means to be written in computer, our language to be written when nobody wants to recognize Rohingya, or either the people or the language, because the language itself has been, beside the Rohingya has been persecuted, the language itself been persecuted. Anybody who reads it, anybody who writes it, anybody who teaches it, anybody who has a book, they've been persecuted, killed, and murdered. So this is that serious. Burmese government has been doing that for centuries. So people in diaspora took this language and then started to read and write. And now today we write in computers, on Facebooks, and sending in WhatsApp messages. This is a dream come into reality. So legitimization of the struggle of the Rohingya itself, calling themselves that we are a separate people, and help us so that we do not become the sunset of the century. So the Unicode has actually played a huge role, which I am going to talk about one by one. So that's a small story of the background behind what is Rohingya and Rohingya language. So the Rohingya language, of course, for decades, the Rohingya has been written in many different shapes and forms because of the Persian emperor and then the British and so on. So the language keeps changing. So in 1980, a modern script arises, introduced by many different scholars, led by Maulana Hanif. Maulana means a scholar. Maulana means Rohingya scholar, of course. So they have finalized this script, which is you can see on my right here on the screen, the Rohingya script, and those below are the vowels. This where the culture and all this. So this is back in 1980s. This was finalized and started to read and write by many different people. That's when the Burmese government actually interfered and says that this should not exist. So before I go into that as well, so because as I told earlier, I'm going to talk a few specifics. So since then, since the Unicode has been accepted, and then there are many other development has been there. We have explained and those elements, especially the inclusion of Rohingya Unicode in Android version 11 and in Google Chrome using web font and so on. So today, the most important thing for us to present here among intellectuals is to how can we enhance this in the Unicode and make it more accessible to Rohingya people and many others, so that this language can thrive. So I can go to very specific today. There's not much support we can see. In Android, yes, you can see the system font is there. If there is a font installed, then you can see, but there is no keyboard that people cannot write. So we are using Keyman as a basic, but Keyman also is not working on a mobile version, but it's working on desktop version. It's very complicated to write and send text messages now these days. And then iOS, there is a system fonts available. We have talked with Anushman Pandey as well, who earlier we have communicated. So it seems like some of the iOS started to appear Rohingya font, but most of the iOS is not working find maybe due to different versions or maybe different versions of phone and so on. But one pattern you can see, there's no keyboard at all. So the keyboard is a very important factor. And Windows, unfortunately, Windows, neither the Windows has any system font. Even though you install a system font, it cannot view in many different devices. And of course, keyboard is also not available, unfortunately, in the Windows itself, beside the keyman. So if we talk about word processor, what are the current things, current tools that we are using to communicate and read and write, which I'm going to show you later. What are the things that we are doing? So LibreOffice seems to work quite fine in terms of system fonts, and also if there is a shaping. Rohingya is also the way Arabic is written is actually connects shapes, different shapes and forms. So LibreOffice it seems like quite good for now that can use, but unfortunately when you save it and then when you retrieve it again, there's a lot of especially the alphabet, especially the digits in between the alphabets goes a little bit out of shape, but overall it does the job. So Doc is not actually working fine as well in terms of MS Office. It's also not in good shape. In terms of browsing, Chrome does not support, Edge does not support, Firefox, none of these devices are support unless you have a web font, of course, but if you do not have a web font, it cannot support. So there's no built-in features that people can use. So this is where a lot of difficulties we've been facing for the last 3 years. Especially the desktop version, because a lot of people want to browse the news and so on. There's a lot of content is being built and been developed every day, but people cannot view unless they go to a person who can actually look into all this. The most important thing here is that Rohingya is in a situation where, which I will give you a brief here, is that Rohingya are situated mostly in Burma, no internet, no connections and so on. But if I talk about the second largest population of Rohingya is in Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar. So these Cox's Bazar are totally made, makeshift camps in tents. They do not have electricity, they do not have sanitation, they do not have clean water and so on. On top of that, they do have smartphones, which is a very low version of smartphone, like a Chinese kind of phone with a very low memory, with a small screen. And on top of that, they do not have electricity. They cannot charge the battery. And then if they have a battery, they need a solar. So there's a lot of struggle. On top of that, Chrome and Edge and Firefox is another struggle as well. Just to give you an idea, Rohingya do not live in an infrastructure where US and Malaysia or any other country. And then we have been also struggling, to develop some sort of anything like in terms of Photoshop, Premiere, CorelDRAW, or any other designing software where to do some sort of designing and graphics, which is also not an easy to do input. Even though you have some sort of a text, if you bring the text into the Photoshop, it doesn't work properly, it doesn't fit properly. It doesn't recognize the font itself. So social media plays a very important role. Of course, a lot of people now using Facebook within the Rohingya community. This is most important tools. So while we talk about Facebook, also now, if some of you know about the Rohingya case, which went to ICJ, International Criminal Court of Justice, and ICC, International Criminal Court, where they have ordered actually now to Facebook to release some of the information, because most of the genocide and all those things was actually done using Facebook messengers and all this, where they have organized attack against Rohingya. They have all the hate speeches and so on. So Facebook has been heavily used by the Burmese government and many other elements of the government, and at the same time for Rohingya also. But there are many ways now. Burmese can write their own messages. They can start to propagate. They can, whether it's a good news or a fake news, they can do that. For Rohingya, unfortunately, the Rohingya cannot even read or write the text. So what Rohingya need to do is actually type somewhere and then make it to a JPEG kind of photo and then post it and then download it, and that's how it works. Similarly goes to Twitter and Instagram. But in terms of YouTube, because it's been Unicoded, we can actually do some sort of Google search and YouTube search with the Rohingya font. But now that's what we have tried. It seems like work, but it doesn't work on Twitter. It doesn't work on Facebook or any other social media for now. So just to give you a glance, this is what we have been doing. So this is considered the world first Rohingya website. This is another organization that was founded by me, which is called Rohingya Vision. Rohingya Vision is the world first Rohingya television channel that broadcasts on satellite as well, on the web, which bring news from Burma and then broadcast it to the rest of the world. So we have different versions of Rohingya Vision television website, English, Burmese, and Rohingya. So this is the Rohingya version. This is the Noto-san font that has been developed by Google. It's been very generous by them, and we are using a web font to view so that people do not have to install the font, because that is very, for some people, it could be quite difficult to install that font. So this is one of the website that people daily, and we are actually doing this. This is the screenshot of 7th October. You can see down there. Of course, being used WordPress, and many people visit this to view the news. This became one of the main source for Rohingya community around the world who are dispersed and across the globe. They do not have a platform to connect. So this is one of the platforms that can connect, and they can relate, they can get their news and updates. So the input so far, what we are now doing is we're using the only way this available tool, which is also developed by us, by Craig and me, which is a Keyman desktop version, but not available on mobile, but it's been under development, it's not been developed yet. So that is the only method of, which is quite a struggle for many people to get this installed. This is a layout that how this is also available in our website, which I'm going to share later. This is a keyboard layout where we placed all our alphabets, all our vowels and consonants, and so on. You can actually visit this website, which is Rohingya Zuban, Rohingya, ZUBAN.org. This is where you can find this layout at the same time. Since then, there's a lot of book. As I told you, now we use a few tools and very limited tools. There's now hundreds of books written, also with the Unicode font and with that tools that is available. This is Universal Human, which is UDHR, Universal Human Rights Declaration, which is also uploaded in the United Nations website for different languages. Just one sample of that book cover. There's another book which is a basic grammar for Rohingya, also available on the website, which also used. So these are some of the font designer we have used. It was quite difficult to get all these things done because since most of the designing tool doesn't work with this. So this is another book. So there's a lot of content so I've just put a few for your reference. So now this is the condition of the Rohingya people. So there is no proper school. You cannot see desk. You cannot see aircon. You cannot see all these fancy walls and tables and chairs. This is where the heart. This is where the Unicode comes in place. This is where you can see the banner behind. We have designed those banners and printed out. This small girl been teaching in Cox's Bazar in makeshift camp. This is a small school. Today, according to our estimate, there are more than 75 not 1,000, but 75 schools in this kind of situation in Bangladesh. And there's a couple of others in Malaysia, in Saudi Arabia. This is where their people are learning now and communicating. Just one picture, how these things, every time there is a news that, you can search on Google, you can upload a video in Rohingya language and you can search it in YouTube and all this. So the happiness thrives within the Rohingya community because we have been disfranchised, we have been marginalized. So Unicode has actually given a new fresh breath of air. So for a lot of people, it might be just computer geeks and all this. For Rohingya community, this is a really an opportunity to live and to be proud and to be happy. This has actually brought a huge impact into Rohingya's children, Rohingya's future, Rohingya's culture as well, making this culture alive. So I'm going to go to the second picture. So this is another picture of the same school where children are studying. This was some of the books that recently was donated by another Rohingya from Canada. It's about 25,000 books. These people do not even have books to. So at this note, I just also want to explain that many different countries actually banned Rohingya to learn their own languages. Unfortunately, one of them is Bangladesh, where they mentioned that they cannot study Bengali. So because they study Bengali, maybe they will assimilate into their culture and so on. So they need to learn the other language beside those. And many other countries in Middle East also who are not giving them access to their existing infrastructure, school, and so on. This is some community-run schools, which is itself is difficult to run and led by community. This is one of the school also in Cox's Bazar where children, it's not graduation, but it's kind of a function where they have completed a course. And these are some of the small gifts that presented by our committee, Rohingya Zuban committee. So Rohingya Zuban is one of the main authority to organize, to print, to publish, to rectify books, and then to run these informal schools in one way or another, and funded by them as well, the Zuban committee. This is another school, also wanted to give, also run by UNICEF. You can see some of the UNICEF. So UNICEF and many other organizations are now also adopting because the Rohingya, this is the Rohingya children's demand, Rohingya's youth demand that they want to learn the language. So now many different NGOs are coming from different countries to facilitate them, but they are also struggling in terms of, technological difficulties. They cannot read, they cannot write through browsers, cannot send emails, cannot post on Facebook. All the easy available tool does not support this, the font or the language. And you can see there was a recent demonstration that is also run by the Rohingya in Cox's Bazar, where people have taken banners, printed these banners to ask for their demands, because most of them are expelled from the country. It's another one. So different fonts, you can see different fonts, but at the same time, my focus, as I told you earlier, is the impact on people's life, that people actually now proud to hold their banners in their own language and ask for demand. And this is one of the banner we're thanking Bangladesh government for supporting their cause, for giving them a space to be even in a makeshift camp, because they do not have even a makeshift camp, since their villages and their houses are all burned down. So this is a recent announcement of COVID-19. You can see on the right, this is one of the clinic in a very, a lot of people call it, refugee camp. I call it a concentration camp, unfortunately, because this is the biggest road, or the biggest road you can see, which is the narrowest in different standard also. So, but here my objective was to show that even now people use, all these social distancing, cleaning, washing your hand with soap, and all those things are COVID-19 basic SOPs and so on. It's been written in Rohingyas and been distributed. So this is a form of education, a form of empowerment, also done through, of course, computer and so on. So this also gives a lot of hope to Rohingya community. It's another picture of that. You can see this is one of the camp where people cannot cross those camps. The other side is the Bangladesh residency, and all this Rohingya lives in this part, on the right part. Just to introduce you, Rohingya Language Council, RLC, is one of the important aspect of developing this. So basically what we are doing, and I'm also the founder of the Rohingya Language Council, RLC. So the idea of RLC is how can we digitize it and standardize the Rohingya language and making it available for all Rohingya so that it can thrive, so that it can go and it can basically, get the potential what it deserves. So rohingyazuban.org, you can see most of the development there on the website. We don't have the time now here, but you can see from the time we have put a timeline there, when the language was started, when it was digitized, when it was proposed to the Unicode, and when it was approved, and when Android has, adopted it, and when Google has done the font and so on. There are many informations on this. So this is one of the most important place to go to look into many different things, the development of it, the news, everything related to the Rohingya language and the digitization and the Unicode. So in Android, Natusan Rohingya font has been added in year 2020, which is last year. No direct keyboard support yet, which we are hoping to have soon. But at the same time, now we are using, as I told, some of the web tools to write it. These are Keyman keyboard. You can language tool. This is one of the tools that developed by Craig. Very generous to him, and thank you very much to the rest of the team, where people, this is one of the tools now Rohingya uses to go into this particular URL, and they can type, and they can do a couple of things. There's a basic dictionary and so on as well. For Rohingya language resources, anybody want to just write it down, or maybe you can share the slide. There's a lot of book available on this website, which is Rohingya ZNC.com, Rohingya Zuban Committee, and another one is Rohingya Vision. As I told you earlier, I showed a snapshot of it as well. So news and many updates are there, many books on PDF version available for download, for cataloging, and many others. So now, I mean, some of the things that we have highlighted, so we came to very close to the slide ending. UDHR was one of the most important things that adoption done. Universal Human Rights Declaration, the version, Rohingya version was up there. iOS has adopted it. Android has adopted it so far on at least the system font. So today, the difficulty that we are facing is especially on the social media activity, where a lot of people are now using social media to learn and to teach. If you can go to Google, if you can go to YouTube and all the other places, video streaming, or Facebook, where now Rohingya are making videos and vlogging in Rohingya language, how to write poetry, how to write news, how to tell stories. So they're making all these videos and translating it and putting it into all the social media apps, including Snapchat and so on, doing a lot of videos. And some of the Rohingyas also now doing translation for different services where they can use this font as Unicode. And now, and most important thing here is that people now found a way to communicate. So there's a lot of communication going on, which was not available or did not happen or was unable to do it because of this technological gap. As I always say, Rohingya is physically stateless. They do not have a state. Today, we are now, we do not want to be digitally stateless. So these are some of the social justice using technology. We might not get everything, but we believe that technology and especially language could actually bring all those gaps together. Now today, Rohingya News Agency available in Rohingya languages. Many news agencies started to write. Since last year, they're using different web fonts to write it, and the language or others now. A lot of schools demonstration, COVID SOPs, and I have shown you some of the impact, how this impacting people's life across the globe, not only in Burma, but also in Bangladesh, in Saudi Arabia, wherever Rohingya are unfortunately taking shelter. So what I would like to take this opportunity is to call and ask for help, if I may say the word, which is because to call out people who can help us to add Rohingya language into CLDR, where we can build this library for different softwares, where to bring all this more accessibility. And definitely we are in need of a keyboard, probably a Gboard, or any keyboard that can actually support adoption by Microsoft. I did communicate with one brother in Microsoft to look into the adoption. How can Microsoft adopt the Rohingya language? In at least people can view the font in Microsoft Word or any other Microsoft tools, and Adobe as well, iOS, to look into more keyboard, FB. Most importantly, Facebook and Twitter should look into this very seriously, because this is one of the most used tools among the youth. And then youth are now a lot of energy to bring this and to bring their language to the world. So, but unfortunately, it's limiting them to do it to Facebook, to write, to copy and paste, to do all sorts of things. Cannot generate content. And then, of course, another building new tools issues is anyone has any idea can communicate with us through the email. Any tools that is available that can be converted maybe into Rohingya language, such as dictionary or even OCR or a voice recognition. OCR could be another good way, because there's a lot of old books written, which is not in Unicode. Of course, it was handwriting. If there is a way that we can extract those, because why I specifically mentioned OCR here, I think the climate change is only not affecting the countries, the wealthy countries, also all the poor countries, I think all of you know. And among the poorest, we are the stateless people in Bangladesh. Recently, there was a huge flood where all the important documents of people has been actually just floated away, or it's been damaged very badly. And after that flood, there was a huge massive campfire. A lot of people were dead, actually. So a lot of documents, our important documents, have been destroyed, and many other forms, unfortunately. So we do not have much time to explain all these things, but I believe there's a lot of potential to help this, and to look into all this possibilities of enhancing the language and giving support to the language, and most importantly, giving a hope to the most hopeless people. And that's all. I am at the end. So this is a Rohingya version of Shukriya, which is a thank you very much. And this is my email and Craig's email address here to communicate and further. And we hope this slide gives you an idea of Rohingya and how your work is actually affecting the Rohingyas' life, how youth and children and women and men is actually how happy. If I could show some videos, how people are happy about it, how people's joy when they see their language has been recognized by Unicode, their language has been appearing in Google and YouTube, and people, there is many articles written on Guardian, on many other different newspapers around the world, which gives them a sense that, we are not alone. There are good people out there who are willing to help us, and they will not let us to extinct. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you have any question, then we can.
Thank you, Mohammed. I wanted to add just a couple of other comments. I was introduced to Mohammed. We've never met in person. As you might guess, getting visas these days is difficult, especially from a place like Islamabad. It turns out that Mohammed explained to me that Islamabad is even more complicated after the withdrawal of Western forces and government agencies from Afghanistan. Where'd they go? They went to Islamabad. So just the ability to get a visa became almost impossible. I was introduced to Mohammed through Deborah Anderson in the Script and Coding Initiative. Deborah said, "Oh, this is an interesting man. There are some interesting things we can cover." And the Unicode standardization process had already gone through at that point. But as Mohammed points out, Unicode standardization isn't enough. Unless this is available for people on their platforms, unless there are ways that people can type and read without having to install software that is very difficult for most people to do. You and I, everyone in this room knows how to install a font, but that's not possible for many people, and many mobile devices, it's not possible at all. So I agree with his appeal for help. I want to make one more note. On many platforms, when the script is not recognized in the platform, such as disallowed characters for people's names. If a person cannot type his or her name in the script that the person is used to, then it makes it almost impossible for that person to feel comfortable or even to use platforms. And social media is one of those places where even the inability to type your name becomes a huge barrier for people. So we here in Silicon Valley don't have to worry about many of the things that Mohammed has described, but I think that we have the ability with our technology and our influence to improve things dramatically for them. Are there any questions for Mohammed? And we do need to use the mic so he can hear us.
I was curious about fonts that are available now. You mentioned the Notasans, Rohingya, and the Nuris. Rohingya Nuris one, I think, was another font that was mentioned.
Yes, two font, yes.
Okay.
Nuris one was the first font, and the Notusan is the second font.
And is the Nuris font a different style than, like, the Notasans obviously is a sans serif style. The strokes are, mono width. I'm curious to know what the other font is like.
Yes.
Is it a significantly different style?
If I could show you some. If you can see my screen, I can give you some basic understanding here. Yes, if you can look at this one here. Yes, this is how it looked like. It's a little bit different. It's a different style together.
Could you zoom that a little bigger, please?
Yes, I can. Yes, it's a different style.
Okay, thank you.
Than the Notice.
I want to point out that one of the first things that Mohammed and I did when we were starting to get to know each other is he sent me his font, which was not in Unicode. He'd built it as an encoded font because that's all he could do. And we worked together to get his font converted so that it now has Unicode code points. And then Noto Sans was developed by Google in conjunction with font makers. And so we also built a converter for existing text in his font encoding can be converted to Unicode by a one-to-one mapping. That's fairly straightforward. And we actually have a little website where that can be done interactively for people who are interested in doing that. But more fonts would be helpful, of course, and additional support. I don't know how much applications such as word processing or browsers or other applications need to know about things being in Unicode or not, or how often they need to be updated to recognize things like Rohingya in system fonts. But that's another barrier for people. Even if everything is there, but people don't know how to turn their browser to say, use this font, it's as if it doesn't exist at all. So we who are technically pretty comfortable are very different from the folks who are in the camps, as he was showing. Over here and then back.
Thank you, and thank you for the talk. Just felt I'd be remiss if I didn't note that iOS did release a Rohingya keyboard in iOS 15 that was recently released, and if you have any feedback on that, if you have access to it, I'd be very curious to hear it. Not that I'm going to subject this audience to that. I'll write you an email and get in touch.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think in the iOS there's a couple of development since last year, system font and some of the typing, some people are doing it. But unfortunately, most of the Rohingya does not use iPhone because that is a high-end phone. As I told you earlier, in Cox's Bazar in Burma and other parts of the world, people use very low-end Android, which is Chinese kind of phone, what they can afford, which is at this point not accessible. Some of them told us, I myself does not use an iPhone, so I'm not really familiar, but some of them told me that people can see, some of them can write, some of them cannot, so it's not very, very clear. But I would love to get in touch with you on that and see how that thing can work for especially, there are Rohingyas who lives in Malaysia and Saudi Arabia, more fairly good in terms of infrastructure and in terms of accessibility of the phone. So those people do have it in certain percentage. So that would be also great if we could get that thing moving and enabled.
Go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. It was an amazing journey you shared with us of all the community and everything. I wanted to ask you if you can briefly give us some indication of the timelines involved, and also if there were any stages that were particularly difficult or challenging.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the script was actually finalized back in 1980s at the beginning of 80s, and then later it was a huge difficulty for the Rohingya people inside Arakan to learn and these things. So for those 10 years and so was very difficult for people up to 1990s. Then people in diaspora in Bangladesh, in Saudi Arabia, wherever Rohingya fled, they started to learn in 1990s. So, and my father was one of the person who were actually involved in this. My father has written a lot of textbooks, dictionaries and mathematics and many other for schools to this. So I was myself, when I was in high school in 1995, I was involved from 1995 to digitize this language. As they approach me and says, can we actually do this? In 1995, I started to look into the digitization. Somewhere in year 2000, we managed to digitize that, and those days were very complicated, and we were still very young, and we did not approach the right people. And so in the year 2000, we have digitized it. I'm the first person who actually did that with a couple of my friends. And then later on, we have built many fonts onto that using Arabic script, and then people can read and write in Microsoft Word and many others as well. But unfortunately, Arabic is more complex than the Rohingya. Some of the Fatha, Kasra, up, down is not fitting properly. And then there's many other fonts being developed. About 5 or 6 fonts were developed during those days before the Unicode. And in year 2010, I started to look into the Unicode, realizing that we needed web browsers and so on. Then I was get in touch with university. That's where Anushman Pandey was actually, we had in communication, and then we started to put a proposal in year 2011. And 2012 was the first submission of the Unicode proposal. In 2000, it was, I think, not approved up in about 5 to 6 years. In 2017, end of 2018, it was approved by the Unicode. 2000, and then into year 2020, Android was adopted. And earlier than that, 2019, a Unicode font was created. The first Unicode font was the Nouri's one, and then the Noto Sun in 2019. In 2020, Android has adopted it. And now I think 2021, iOS and many others has adopted so far, if I'm correct.
Are there any other questions or comments? Peter.
I'm curious to know what the status is of keyboard layouts, particularly, I mean, I know that there have been some keyboard layout implementations. Is there an established convention for what is the preferred layout that Rohingya users would like to use?
Correct. Yeah, thank you. So I think this is a very important question as well. There was a couple of keyboard that was actually based before the Unicode. We have based it on the Arabic language. Wherever R is there, we put Alif with, we put R with Alif and Ba with and all these things. So now, since that was one of the version, and then during the Unicode, we have decided within the Rohingya community and Rohingya consortium, like especially Rohingya Zuban Committee, who have been working all this while, and RLC, Rohingya Language Council. So we decided the layout that we have showed, that is the most unified layout, that was now based on English alphabets. A is equal to R, B is equal to Ba, C is equal to Cha. That's how we did it. If I could go back again here. So this is how you can actually see the keyboard. Just present one more time so that you can see here. R is with A, Ba is with B. So the English is the most available keyboard. Anywhere, any keyboard, wherever you go, English keyboard is the most available one. And from the Unicode, we have started to shift based on English layout. So this is the most common layout, and this is most agreed layout for the Rohingya community now. And this is what the Keyman is being built on. This is what many other tools that we are using, online tools and also. So this is most of that built because this is easy, and this is very, it can, because the Arabic is more complicated, then you need an Arabic keyboard anywhere you go. So English ABC is available on every keyboard. So this is what we came to a conclusion. This would be the best fit to put it. So it took us about a couple of weeks to figure out and finalize and debate. And finally, this is the version.
And I just want to mention, this is one that we hope to get into the CLDR keyboard database. And like all keyboards, there are variations possible. We have just a minute or two left. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes.
I mean, since I'm a CLDR geek, it should be possible, I think, if someone wants to volunteer CLDR data. We have the language code set up in the survey tool, and if if you know of someone that wants to contribute translations, I think that should be possible.
Yes, I will be the first contributor, and we have been talking with Craig, and I have the team behind the RLC and the Rohingya Zuban and many other institutions behind. I've been telling them if there is a window or an opportunity where we can get the CLDR, and of course they don't understand what is a CLDR, but basically I told them, the basic terms of all the software, file, open, edit, and all these things. Actually, some of this already been done. We have it ready. If there is a way we can start to feed in, we can. Actually, there's a lot of work is already been done, in the process of building the dictionary.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that this is an example of how Unicode is affecting people's lives in a more profound way than making online shopping or showing the favorite pictures of your cat. This is affecting people at a very profound level, and the work that you all do is very important. And of course, the work that Mohammed has done for his people and continues to do has great benefits for not just his people, but for our world. So thank you very much. Can we give Mohammed a round of applause, please? And I sincerely hope that we get a chance to meet face-to-face sometime in the near future, and that life in Islamabad is well for you. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.